Welcome to Xara Template Tutorial Lesson 119 with Xara Web Designer 9 Premium software. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about how to use the new table widget in Xara Web Designer 9 Premium. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that you want to do is open up a blank new document and then go ahead and go to the Designs Gallery. Go ahead and lock that panel. And we're going to look for the folder that says Page Elements and Widgets and go ahead and left click on that. And then we're going to look for the folder that says Other Widgets. When you find that folder, go ahead and left click on it, and you'll see a series of thumbnails that you can pick from. And we're going to look for the one that says New Table Widget, and we're going to drag that into our workspace. And then let's go ahead and close out the Designs Gallery, and then double left click on this widget. And when you do that, it's going to bring us into Edit View. And you'll see to the right we have a list of steps to edit our widget, and then to the left we have our controls for entering values and other attributes for our widget for the table. So let's take a look at step number 1. In step number 1, it's saying that you can choose either the value 0 or 1. And if you look to your left over here at the theme, we can put in the value 0 or 1 for theme. If you keep it at 0, it's going to take on a grayish color, which is the default color for the table. And if you were to set it to 1, then it would take on the theme color 1. If you have a theme color 1 in your document. In this case, I don't have a theme color 1, and I'll show you how to do that later. But let's take a look at step number 2. Step number 2 is telling you that you can modify the number of rows that will display. And if you don't have enough rows to display that content, maybe let's say we add 7 rows to our CSV data down here below, but we only have 6 rows to display. Then for that 7th row, we'll have an option to click to the next page within our widget to see that extra data. But in this case, I'm going to leave everything as is for right now. And let's take a look at what this table looks like in our web browser. So go ahead and hit File, Preview Web Page, and then let's view this in Chrome. So when you finally get this to come up in your web browser, you'll see that we have our categories at the top. We have categories, apples, pears, oranges, and bananas. Then we have the person's names and the amount of each of these items that they have. If you click the controls at the top, it will sort that data ascending or descending. In other words, least to greatest or greatest to least. So for example, if I were to click on pears at the top here on the arrow keys, you'll see that now the highest number of pears will appear at the top. If I were to click it again, the lowest number of pears will appear at the top. And everything will adjust for every value and for every category based on the field that I changed. So that's how you sort the information within your table. But it won't stay that way. It'll reset. You know, if a person comes to your website again, the values will reset like so. So let's go ahead and go back to our program here. And let's take a look at how to change this data. Maybe I wanted to change categories to a more relevant field. Maybe we should call it name, since it's dealing with names. We would name that name, and then that value would take that place. And if we wanted to change the numbers, we could put in 100 for John. And then if we go ahead and preview this in our web browser, you'll see that now, let me actually go to my web browser so you can see this a little bit better. You'll see that now John has 100 apples, and you now see that the first category says name. So it takes on whatever values you change it to. So let's go ahead and go back to our program again, and let's take a look at step number 3. Number 3 says that you can enter in comma separated values, and usually that's from a program such as Excel that can actually create that kind of file. So let's go ahead and take a look at a Excel file that I created on my computer. In this case, it's called sample. And I just entered in some random numeric values for this particular Excel file. And so what I'm going to show you is how to save this so that it's a CSV file. So go to File, and then go to Save As. And in this case, I'm going to overwrite the file that I already created. And I'm going to say yes, replace it, because I created this file before the tutorial. And you're going to go ahead and just ignore the warnings that it gives you. Go ahead and hit yes if you have a file already on your computer. And then after you do that, let's go ahead and go back to that file on our computer. So in this case, I'm back at the sample file, And I'm going to open up Notepad, and I'm going to drag this file into Notepad. And when you drag that file into Notepad, you'll notice that it carries over the values that we created in that Excel file, except it's separated by commas, hence the name, comma separated values. So go ahead and highlight that, hit Control C to copy it, go back to Xara Web Designer, and we're going to highlight all this data and hit Control V to paste that new data into our program. And let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like in our web browser. And I'm going to bring it up in the bigger view. And you'll see now it shows salary, hours, and vacation time, and employees at the beginning. And then it has the dollar amount that they make for their salaries, how many hours they're working, how much vacation time they have available. And just like before, we can sort this data by clicking the arrows at the top. So Bill has the highest salary, but works the same number of hours and also has the same number of vacation time. So let's go ahead and go back to Xara Web Designer. And this time, I'm actually going to change the color. So let's go ahead and hit Control S and save this document. And it's going to save our edits to the table. And this time, I'm actually going to go to my color editor at the bottom left-hand corner of my screen. When you bring up the color editor, we're going to go ahead and first, before we do anything, let's click off of this table because we don't want to change the color of the table with the color editor. We want to actually add a theme color. So go ahead and click on the name tag icon in the color editor, and we're going to add the word theme and then space, capital C, color, space 1. We're going to add theme color 1. Hit create, and then we're going to change that color. Okay? And once we get a color for theme color 1, let's go ahead and double left click on this table, and let's set the theme color to 1. And then go ahead and hit Control S to save this file, or to save our changes to the widget, I should say, the table widget. And you'll see that it changes to that color. In this case, the color is blue. And if we were to preview this in our web browser, you'll see that it's the color blue. Okay? So that's how you change the color for your table. And everything will continue to work the way it did before. There's one last thing that I want to show you. And I'm going to go ahead and double left click on this table again. And when you're back at the table, the last thing that I wanted to show you is basically that if we were to add another field, let's say that I went in here, let me see if I can get this to work here. Okay, so if you hit enter and then write in the name, James, and then put comma, and then put in some more dollar values. Let's say that this person's making $1. This is his salary, unfortunately. Hopefully he finds another job. So we got $4 in there, a total. And let's go ahead and hit Control S to save this. And then let's go ahead and preview it in our web browser. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that so I can preview it. And it's actually supposed to, let me see, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I actually only have 5 fields. So let me go back to the edit view because I actually have I don't have enough fields here. Let's go ahead and set the rows display to 4 because I have a total of 5, I believe here. Yeah, we have a total of 5 rows. So let's set that to 4, and then let's go ahead and preview that in our web browser. And this time we should see the controls. There we go. So you should see a control at the bottom of your screen like this, and I'm going to preview it in my web browser so we can see the bigger example of it. But if you were to click on these arrow keys, you'll see that it shows James on the second page. And if we click back, it'll take us back to the regular page. In this case, I added too many dollar values because there's only 3 fields. So make sure that you have the right number of columns if you're going to add extra data. So let me go back and actually remove that extra dollar because there's only 3 fields for the dollar. So if we were to preview that now, it should look correct. So everything looks nice and crisp now. If I were to preview that in my web browser and then click on the next key, you'll see that it shows the proper values for each category. So just be careful when you're adding the extra columns in terms of data. If you add too many, you will get something that doesn't look that great. But I hope this tutorial was helpful, and if it was, don't forget to embed, comment, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for future tutorials. Have a great day.